From the studios of A Christian Viewpoint, going out into all the world and preaching the gospel to all nations, here is your host, Minister Michael Patrick Mitchell.
Good morning, folks, and welcome back to the broadcast. Pull up a chair this morning and get some coffee and make sure it's strong, because we're going to be dealing with a topic today that is a strong topic and is a deep topic. And that topic is the attack that is happening on the history of the European Christian culture. Now, I don't know if you're aware of it, if you've been paying attention, if you've been following along, but this is certainly something that is one of the top things, top headlines going on in our country and across the world, really, today. And I want to make no bones about it. It has nothing to do with the color of skin. It has everything to do with the Christian culture that those who with white skin brought to this land. A culture that was built on the principles of God's word, and a culture that brought, because of that, brought freedom that has echoed through history, justice that demands fairness, charity that has opened the hearts and hands of people, human dignity that declared every life to be sacred, and all of these great virtues flowing straight from the Bible, straight from Christ himself. And right here in 2026, that Christless culture is facing a savage, coordinated attack like never before. Now, my friends, this isn't just another round of politics as usual. This is a full-on spiritual showdown that's taken place, a clash of kingdoms, if you will, and we have got to wake up. We have got to absolutely get fired up about it, and we need to stand up like we've never stood up before. There is something massive and dark that is brewing here. And I believe with every fiber of my being that this is straight up Satan's agenda in action. Crafty, patient, relentless, zeroed in on shrinking Christianity down and pushing it to the ragged edges of society, turning it into a hated, mocked minority right here in this nation, and honestly, every nation in the world. That's his agenda. Now, we know that Satan believes the scriptures. He knows the scriptures are true. And so he knows that he cannot completely destroy the church, because Jesus himself pronounced, he said, even the gates of hell shall not prevail against my church. But Satan is doing everything in his power to make Christianity look irrelevant, laughable, dangerous, bigoted, racist, and all those other things that they like to call us. And he is trying to make it into something that needs to be silenced in the public square. And so, again, unless you're asleep at the wheel, brothers and sisters, then you're blind to not see this. And this isn't just some future threat that we're talking about here. This is something that is happening right now. As a matter of fact, it has been in the works for some time, but it is really starting to develop in these days and just accelerating in these days at breakneck speeds all across the West. And we see that it took place and is taking place over in Europe much faster than it is here, but it is the same exact thing that is taking place. And so, over there in Europe, the very cradle of our Christian culture here in the United States, and think about that culture for a minute, if you will. the majestic Gothic cathedrals that were built that were piercing up through the sky and putting a cross high up into the sky. Laws that were carved straight from the Ten Commandments. Art and music that exploded out of pure devotion to Christ. uh, Bach, Michelangelo, the whole Renaissance time, all built on that foundation, all a part of the European culture. And that bedrock launched Western civilization into greatness. And science and education and human rights and exploration and the role of law all exploded under this culture. But today, it's cracking wide open, and the division is spreading fast. Now, I've got some uh, statistics for you here. If you've ever heard of Pew Research, it's a good research company to get statistics. It's very fair. Company that does these statistics, and Pew Research tells us this. Between 2010 and 2020, okay, Europe's Christian population dropped by 9% in absolute numbers. That's down to about, it says, 505 million people. The share of the population identifying as Christian fell from 74% to 67%. Okay. While the religiously unaffiliated group has surged up to 25%. So what is that saying? Those numbers don't sound too alarming, but when you think about it, that's tens of millions of people that are walking away from Christ in a span of 10 years. Tens of millions of people, or just never coming in. Why? Well, because of Satan's agenda to uh, drive lower birth rates among believers and relentless secular pressures in schools and in media is causing young people to ditch faith, to ditch Christianity in droves. In key nations like France and the UK and others, Christians are no longer the clear majority in many of these places. Again, the nuns, we'll call them the nuns, the ones that don't believe in anything, they're exploding, especially among the under 30 crowd. They're just exploding over there. And what's happening now, because they're leaving the faith, they are leaving this vast spiritual void for something to come in and take its place. And what's taking its place is atheism, and Islam is coming in to try to take that place. But my friends, the cold stats only go so far. The real gut punch is the raw hatred that is boiling over throughout the world and over there in Europe. The OIDAC, which is the Observatory on Intolerance and Discrimination Against Christians in Europe, just released their 2025 report, which covered 2024, and the numbers are chilling. Look what it says here. Listen what it says. There have been documented 2,211 anti-Christian hate crimes across the continent, over in Europe. Okay, 2,211 hate crimes towards Christians. We're talking vandalism, that is smashing the crosses and staining up the altars and the stage with graffiti. Threats are being hurled at pastors in the streets, and just outright personal assaults are spiking to, says here, 274 incidents just in 2024 alone. 274 Christians assaulted in Europe in just 1 year. And my friends, harassment over there is turning into beatings, even murders. And the arsons here, look what it says here. There were 94 church arsons in Europe in 2024. That's 100 churches burned to the ground in 1 year over in Europe, and that doubles the previous year's total. So things are accelerating greatly. Let's see here. One third of those fires, excuse me, one third of those fires raged in Germany alone, where church leaders are openly saying that all taboos have been broken. So, France watched the historic church in St. Omer gutted by flames in September of 2024. They burnt that down. A 76-year-old monk was brutally murdered in Spain for his faith. So, my friends, this isn't just random crime. These are isolated nutcases who are targeting and having seething rage towards Christians, and are trying to make. That's because the media is trying to make, and people are trying to make Christians appear oppressive, appear backwards, and just they are completely unworthy of respect over there in Europe. That nobody has any respect for Christianity over there in Europe.
Across parts of Nigeria today, many believers live under constant pressure. Families face poverty, instability, and, in some regions, open hostility toward their faith. Children are often the most vulnerable, growing up without safety, without opportunity, and without access to quality education. For orphans and underprivileged children, the future can feel hopeless before it even begins. Yet in the midst of these challenges, God is still at work. Great Hidden Treasures Christian Schools is seeking partners who share a vision for reaching the next generation through education and faith. Support is needed in the form of financial assistance, educational materials, and volunteer involvement. Every contribution helps place a child in a classroom, put books in their hands, and plant the Word of God in their hearts. For many of these children, this school is their only opportunity to escape the cycle of poverty. It is a place where orphans are known by name, where underprivileged children are treated with dignity, and where the love of Christ is not only taught but lived out every day. But the need is great, and this work cannot continue alone. To learn more about Great Hidden Treasures, Christian Schools, and how you can partner in this work, please visit our website on the screen. Together, we can make an eternal impact, one family, one community at a time.
And so, what do we learn? Well, Europe is screaming to us. It's warning us over here in the United States that, hey, look at what is coming. Okay, you ought to be alarmed because look at what is coming. In America, I've got some statistics here for America, for United States. Our shining fortress, home to the largest, most vibrant concentration of committed, God-fearing Christians the world has ever seen, all gathered into one nation. Our founders boldly wrote that we are all endowed by our Creator right into our Declaration of Independence. And that Christian Western heritage, drawn from European stock, is what shaped our schools, our laws, our charities. It is the moral backbone that has held this republic together. And we didn't just keep the gospel light burning here. We sent it right here in this land. We sent that light blazing out all across the world to the very ends of the earth through all types of different missions and aids and charity. The United States Christians are the most charitable people on the face of the earth. But look at Pew's Research's latest study here concerning the United States. Now, this is dealing with 2023 and 2024, and this is alarming. It puts the amount of U.S. adults, the population of them claiming to be Christian is 62%. So almost down to half of the population is now I remember in my days, I didn't look up the numbers, but I bet if I go look at the numbers, they would be at least up in the 80s when I was a kid, up in the 80% of the population, maybe high 80s. And if you go back even farther, that number would most likely get even higher. So we're seeing a very strong decline within our generation. A generation is 60 years. And if we just go back 60 years, look at the major decline that has taken place in our country. So 62%, that's down. See, in 2007, it was 78%. So it went from 78 to 62 in just those short years, just here in the millennium. And again, the nones, those who believe in nothing, they have gone up to about 29% of the population. So atheism is growing, Christianity is declining, and this is just after decades of steady erosion. And it just, Satan is just crafty and is just good at what he does. And he is constantly on the attack, and he is not giving up, and he is not going to stop. And he is working relentlessly 24 hours a day. And I don't believe demons sleep. And so they're working even while we are asleep to cause this to happen. And it just seems like lately, not only is he not backing down, he's doubling down. He's doubling down. And because he knows, here's what Satan knows. He knows that America's influence, that the United States global influence is so strong that he has to stop the United States. That has to be his ultimate goal. And he is using every avenue that he can. He's using the media, and they're blasting their megaphones on against the biblical views of marriage and gender and life, and they are calling those traditional views from our historical culture as hate speech. And to say these things, they are calling them hateful. The schools are increasingly shoving these ideologies that completely contradict God's design for humanity down the throats of our children. The cancel culture is clamping down hard on us, believers who speak the truth. Doxing is taking place. Churches are being threatened, they are being vandalized, and pastors and preachers are being intimidated. And all of that is climbing here too as we look at the numbers here. The assault is on our what? On our heritage. It's on our culture directly, my friends. It looks like a skin color thing, and I'm not talking about a skin color thing here, but it really does break down to certain skin color groups belonging to certain cultures. And it really is just an attack on our culture because it really is just an attack on Christ. We have to remember that. And so they are twisting that culture, our heritage, into oppression, and they are twisting it and turning it into what they are calling white supremacy or white Christian nationalism. And they're doing it, and they are attempting to shame and demoralize us, and especially this new rising generation of those of European descent, to shame them into because of their color, because of their culture. And this strikes at the heart of the European race's historic role. I mean, let's be honest, our historic role as stewards of Christianity for centuries. Our ancestors raised cathedrals that still stand today in awe. Uh, we fought to end slavery because we drew that from the idea of biblical equality. We fought for that. We built hospitals out of Christ's command for us to go out and heal the sick, not from hate, but from an overflow of love, to love your neighbor as you love yourself, to value every single person as an image bearer of God. And today, that incredible legacy gets demonized. It's being rewritten and weaponized to justify tearing it all down. Again, the battle is raging on every front. The media, Hollywood, and streaming giants like Netflix glorify every kind of sin and harden our children's heart to sin and are painting Christians as narrow-minded villains and hypocrites, making fun of Jesus Christ. Our education system, which once proudly were Christian-founded universities and schools, are now pushing critical race theories and that brand our roots as inherently evil and racist and patriarchal and colonialism, poison, and all of those things. And then, of course, society, families are fracturing under the no-fault divorce laws. Economic pressures are grinding people down. Social media is flooding minds with anti-faith propaganda 24/7. So, you know, Satan is just on the attack. We have to remember that is who is behind all of these things. And of course, he's using people to do this. He's turning people against people. But it's exactly what Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12 warns us about when it says, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places." So that is our battle. That is our fight, and we must take up this fight. We must stand up and take on this battle. And so how do we do that? Well, first of all, we got to hold on tight. It's not all gloom and doom just yet. It's getting there. Things can still change, and I pray that they do, and I'm going to be hopeful that they will. But it hasn't hope hasn't completely exploded and gone out into the darkness. There is still hope. God is still moving in powerful ways. Listen to this. According to Barna's research, their 2025 data, again, Barna is another research company that's very reliable. And in their 2025 data, it shows that a personal commitment to Jesus is surging up 12 points since the low in 2021. So just in 4 or 5 years, there has been this, for some reason, this traumatic surge. And it says that now 66% of U.S. adults are saying that Christ is central to their lives, adding nearly 30 million committed believers in just these few short years. 30 million. So that, my friends, is an amazing explosion in these past few years. And who is it that is causing this explosion? Well, it's the new generations. It's Gen Z. It's the millennials. They're leading the charge. Young adults are stepping up with this fresh interest in Christ and Christianity and church attendance. I've seen it at my church. Visitors of young people coming in and just kind of checking things out and looking for something. So, and in a lot of places, we are seeing that, and Barna is saying here that younger generations are now outpacing even the older ones in growth and are showing up nearly 2 weekends a month on average. That's about what I see. I see a little less here where I'm at. It's probably every couple months, but uh, that's growth, my friend. So there's still hope. And over in the UK, they're seeing some things that are similar. They have a research over there called the Bible Society. And here's what they found. They have found that church attendance has jumped significantly in just the recent years, up around 50% in over 6 years, with Gen Z driving much of that hunger. So that's good news over there as well. So the fight is on. Something has taken place. And my friend Satan, I don't know. I don't know if Satan is smart or if he's dumb or if he's both. I guess both can be true. But, to take on God in the way that he does is dumb. But at the same time, he is very skillful. He is very crafty. And so I don't understand why he doesn't realize that every time he persecutes Christians, we grow. That is historically true. And what we're seeing in just the past decade here, and in a half a decade, in these past few years, is exactly that taking place. We seeing this outburst of atheism and secularism that is being shoved down people's throats, and this new generation is questioning it. It's in our nature to be rebellious, and when something becomes popular, people usually tend to rebel against it and find a reason to rebel against it. So Satan's plan, it seems, if this continues especially, is backfiring on him. But there is no doubt that we are certainly at war. And so, again, the hunger and the thirst is undeniable. And it shows here in Europe that adult baptisms are climbing, spiritual curiosity is spiking as people are experiencing the emptiness of secularism. They're feeling empty from it. They're not feeling fulfilled. They're not finding meaning in secularism. So this could very well be the revival that we need. Another great awakening is what this country needs, and we have been praying for a long time now. This may be the answer to the prayer. So keep on praying, keep on holding tight, keep on having hope, and keep on speaking up and standing up for the truth. And that means standing up for our culture, not just because it is tied to our descendants or the color of our skin, but because our culture is tied so closely into the Bible and into biblical values and principles. I'm not claiming that the United States of America is a Christian nation. I'm claiming that it is a nation that was built on the principles of Christianity, and that is the goal. And that goal and that baton has been passed on to us by our forefathers and our descendants, and we must pick it up and we must run that race.
Thank you for watching A Christian Viewpoint. Your prayers and support help us continue sharing truth across the nation. Send your support to the address on the screen or visit us online at achristianviewpoint.com. Subscribe to our annual magazine and stay informed.